Hey, everybody. Bob Babbitt here, and I'm so excited to get to chat with one of my favorite athletes of all time. I consider her one of the most fearless athletes I have ever had the opportunity to chat with. She is a two-time ITU world champion, 2016 Olympic triathlon gold medalist, the only gold medalist in the history of USA Triathlon. Please welcome Gwen Jorgensen. Gwen, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Bob. I'm actually in Flagstaff, Arizona right now training, and we just got about 2 feet of snow last night. So trying to avoid the snow.
So, Gwen, when I look back at your career, I'm always shaking my head because I here you are out of high school. Did you want to swim or run in college? What was your preference?
Yeah, I grew up with a huge love of swimming and I just wanted to stay in the water. So I actually got some college recruitment letters from track and field programs that offered scholarships, and I turned them down because I knew I wanted to swim. Really thankful for my parents who allowed me to choose swimming and helped me pay for college. So I actually started as a walk on at the University of Wisconsin-Madison as a swimmer.
So you swim for a couple years, and then you start swimming and running. In the last couple years, you're running and doing really, really well. As somebody who was really recruited as a scholarship runner. So 2008, seventh NCAA outdoor championships of 5,000 meters, and 2009 Big Ten champion in the 3,000 and the 5,000. In the meantime, you're finishing up your CPA. So your path is pretty well defined. I'm going to go on and just become a CPA. Had you even done a triathlon at that point?
I actually did do one triathlon in high school with my friend. It was her senior project, and I did it with her. And we waited for each other on each of the legs. And I like had a bike. I actually hated the triathlon. I only did it because my friend asked me to. So that was my only experience of a triathlon at the time.
So you're getting your CPA. Ernst and Young has reached out. You've got this cush job waiting for you. And take me through when Barb Lindquist reaches out and says, "Hey, you've got a swimming and running background. We think you could be a professional triathlete and go to the Olympics." What was your original thought?
Yeah, Barb reached out and I just kind of laughed at her. Growing up, I loved swimming and I wanted to be an Olympian in swimming, but I just very early on realized that wasn't a reality. I didn't have, I wasn't making national cuts, I wasn't making Olympic trials cuts. So that dream just kind of left. And that's when at a very young age, I decided I was just going to do my best I could in swimming and try to reach my potential, whatever that would be. So when Barb came to me, she said, "Gwen, I'm an Olympian, and on paper, you're better than I was." So basically, she was kind of saying like, "You can be an Olympian." And I just laughed at her, kind of put her off. I was like, "No way!" And I didn't even know what an ITU triathlon was. I thought she was talking about Ironman. So like, it was definitely a slow start, but she stuck with me and was became a really good mentor of mine. And she
Yeah.
called me about once a week for a year before she actually convinced me to start triathlon.
I mean, really, you were the guinea pig. You were the first one who they basically said, "Hey, we can identify someone with a good swim and run background, teach them to ride a bike. I mean, what's it take to ride a bike, and make them into an Olympian."
Yeah,
So,
and riding a bike, it's not. I mean, it's just time on the bike, right? So I think that's why if you have the engine, you can
right.
kind of become a cyclist because you're just stuck in that position. So there's not too much form, but yeah, I was the first year of the college recruitment program that USA Triathlon had, and at the time, they they set you up with they gave me a free bike, and they found a coach in my local area that worked pro bono for a year to help me with my triathlon and get that started. And now it's really evolved into this magnificent program where they go down and train as a group, and they have specific coaches. And I think it's shown with the rise in USA Triathlon
Yeah.
on the women's, and we're starting to see it on the men's side too now.
So when you tell your parents who have basically helped you pay for college, you've got this dream job of CPA, Ernst and Young, the greatest firms around. Hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go and try to be a professional triathlete. What was their response?
They were way more receptive than I was. They were like, "Hey, come live at home if you want to quit your job." And I was just like, "Absolutely not. my big thing was I wanted to be independent. If I was going to be an athlete, I wanted to be able to support myself. I didn't want to live off of my parents. I wanted to just be able to do it myself. And that was, my biggest hesitation with Barb and USA Triathlon was, I didn't want to just do triathlon and not make a living out of it. And so I was just thankful that I had a job where I could start working part-time. I went on a flexible work arrangement with Ernst & Young. And so I was able to work part-time and travel part-time and focus on my training.
So you're working in Wisconsin. Tom Schuler, good buddy of mine, legendary cyclist, Team 711. He was telling me, he'd call and go, hey, this Gwen is going to be great. We're trying to teach her how to clip in and not fall over at stoplights. How frustrating was that? Again, you're a hell of an athlete for swimming and running, but learning the bike is not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, I was definitely falling over at stop signs at the beginning, just that slow fall where you don't actually get injured, but couldn't unclip. So, that was super frustrating. But I think also for me, I'm always really motivated by a challenge, and it was a challenge and something that I thought I could do. And so for me, it gave me motivation every day, knowing that there was something out there that I could improve upon and knowing that I hadn't reached my potential in it. But yeah, Tom Schuler was in Milwaukee where I was living, and we would do group rides every week and he would help me out. And Tom actually introduced me to my husband, Patrick, on one of the rides.
That was pretty cool. And I remember you were telling me once that he asked you for your number. Patrick asked you for your number, and he sat up and typed it into his phone with no hands on the handlebars. You were like, oh my God, this is pretty amazing.
Yes, I was terrified and amazed at the same time. I thought it was super impressive, but also thought, man, I'm never going to be able to do that, which is pretty funny looking back. Because now obviously I'm able to ride no-handed.
So what was your first triathlon after becoming part of this program, and how'd it go?
I did a race in Claremont, Florida, which was an elite development race where I could earn my pro card. Yeah. And I remember going down there, and it was like January, February, or March, somewhere in the beginning of the year, where Wisconsin, I was basically riding the trainer full time because it was snowy and icy outside still. And I went to the race, and it was a rude awakening, but I did get my pro card. And I think, what's even more amazing is it was either the next race or the third race that I did. I went to a world U23 race, and I got second place there at the FISU World Championships.
Just how quickly you got great at this. 2010 USA Triathlon's Rookie of the Year. 2011, you take second at the test event in London, and that puts you in the Olympics for the following year. Did you surprise yourself?
Oh yeah. It was, I actually felt guilty when I qualified. I went into that race knowing I could qualify, but I didn't actually believe I could do it. I still had those doubts from when I was a young child, just that I would never be an Olympian, that I didn't have what it could take. And, here I am, somebody who just joined the sport a year and a half ago, and I'm qualifying for my first Olympics. And there's outside talk that I'm kind of bringing in thinking, oh man, Gwen, she's just a runner. She only qualified because she's a runner and she doesn't know how to swim, bike, run. And, that was really difficult for me, but it made me make a lot of tough choices that allowed me to become the world and Olympic champion.
Well, and when again, looking back, the term fearless is always the one that I associate with you, because you took that risk to leave a great job, and you were the first to potentially make an Olympic team, and then you make the Olympic team. Was that the race that told you I can be not just good at this, but great at this?
I think the race that actually did that was the London Olympics. I went to the London Olympics, and I had an okay swim, not a great swim. And on the bike, I got a flat tire. And, in the Olympic experience, like I never thought once that I should quit. And I finished that race and I got
38.
38. Thank you. Yes. And I just remember crossing that finish line and thinking, you know what, I can do this. I can be the best. And I looked at who got those medals, and I said, what are those top 3 women doing that I'm not doing?
And the cool part is the woman who won the gold medal was Nicola Spirig, who you would have another run in with down the line. So how did Pat end up proposing to you?
Pat ended up proposing on a bike ride. It was a winter day. I actually thought, I was convinced he was going to propose like 2 weeks earlier, and he didn't. And so at that point, when he didn't, I was like, oh, he doesn't have a ring. He's not going to propose. But it was one day, it was actually the first snowfall that we'd had in a while in Minnesota. And he said, let's go out for a mountain bike ride. And just spur of the moment, we went out and he proposed on that ride, which was probably, besides Stanley, one of the best days of my life.
So when you got into the sport of triathlon, again, you're a Wisconsin kid. Did you have any idea that you'd be basically living out of a suitcase in Europe? Because really, there weren't many ITU races in the States. I think Chicago World Championships was one of the few in terms of major races. How was that adapting to being part of a group, being part of a team, and living abroad?
It was super difficult. When I crossed that finish line in London at the Olympics and made that choice to see what other women were doing, they were in these training environments with coaches and training partners that were their direct competition on a daily basis. And I decided that's what I needed, was a daily performance environment. And I looked at a bunch of different groups, and I just decided Jamie Turner and the Wollongong Wizards was right for me. But it was hard to make that choice because I like being home. I'm a family person. I want to have, Sunday dinner with my mom, my dad, my grandma.
Yep.
That's just the type of person I am. And it's hard for me to be away from home for a long time. And thankfully, Patrick at the time, we weren't engaged or married or anything, but he said he would move abroad with me. And that's what allowed me to make that leap of faith and to join a group where I could be confronted on a daily basis with my competition.
And the people you're training with are a little bit younger. You were sort of grandma. Uh, being with all these young kids is sometimes that's pretty inspiring, right? Because you know that they're thinking, oh my God, she can't compete with us. She's just gotten into the sport, and we've been in the sport longer than she has, and we're 6, 7 years younger than she is.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely really difficult. But at the same time, age-wise, I just feel forever young when I'm around people that are younger than me. I'm in
Yeah.
a training group right now as well, where I'm the oldest, and sometimes I forget how much older I am than other people. You just kind of conform to what they're doing, and they had a lot of energy and they taught me so much. I just remember, going out on bike rides and being super frustrated, but seeing like, if I want to be the best in the world, I need to do what they're doing every single day. And so they pushed me to my limits. And I think that's something that I carry through with my life. Even after my sporting career, I'm going to carry with me, is being surrounded by people that are better than me is something that raises me up. And it also raises other people up to make a team that much better as a whole.
So your winning streak, which is still unbelievable, 13 in a row. You have 4 World Cup races in a row, no one had ever done. You add on to that between a third place in Cape Town, April of 2014, and Gold Coast, April of 2016, 13 in a row, including World Championships in Edmonton and Chicago. When you have a streak like that, does it become a little overwhelming where people are sort of just expecting Gwen to win? And if you don't, they're like, what happened?
I think the only thing that was uh, frustrating or hard about that was how many questions I'd get about it. For me, I just wanted to race. And
Right.
something, I learned a lot of things from Jamie Turner. And one of the big ones was to focus on the process, not the outcome. So to go into each race, and I can't control what other athletes do. I can only control myself. And so I'm focusing on the technique, I'm focusing on the process. And this was something that took years for me to internalize and figure out how to do. I'm journaling every day and writing down every day process and technique based things that I can do to get better, and things that I've done well. And that allowed me to not focus on that winning streak, because I know that that's not what matters. At the end of the day, what matters is me going out there and focusing on the process and the technique. And if I nail that, then the outcome will come. And that's all that I can focus on and be proud of.
So going into Rio 2015, you win the test event. And most of the courses you guys race on may have a few little grades, but the Rio course was big uphill, huge downhill, totally different. When you win the test event, but you also knew that, okay, I've got some work to do to be able to specifically probably handle the downhill. When you came home from that event, was all the focus then, it's all about the Olympics and 1,000% on how do I challenge myself on that course? How do I get myself ready for that downhill?
Yes, exactly. Our training was, usually in non-Olympic years, it's focused before, there's maybe a month and then you do a race and then another month and a race. And each month leading into the race, it's very specific to what that next race is. And after the Rio test event, there was no more specificity to, Yokohama versus Cape Town versus all these other things. It was just Rio course specifics. And, one of the things I really wanted to do was prove that I wasn't just a runner, that I was the full package, the triathlete of a great swimmer, a great biker, and a great runner. And so, we took my weakness of biking and we turned it into a strength. I did things like mountain biking and cyclocross and things that really scared me. I went on a motorcycle down curves, steep hills. We had a virtual reality goggles that I'd wear that had the Rio course so I could know exactly what it was and get comfortable with it. To this day, I'm still nervous riding my bike. So, it took a lot for me to overcome that fear. And to be able to put that in the back of my mind and just race and do what I know how to do on the bike. And so for me to be able to do that was something that I'm super proud of.
So one of the toughest things about the Olympics is it comes every 4 years. And what happens in between sort of goes away if you don't win the medal, right? And not just a medal, but a gold medal. And you've been the best in the world. And Barb Lindquist was the best in the world, and she never medaled in the Olympics. Simon Lessing back in the day was the best before the first ever Olympic triathlon. He didn't medal. So how much pressure did you feel going into Rio as I am the American hope? I'm supposed to win not a silver, not a bronze. If I'm looking up at somebody, it's probably going to be considered a failure. How hard was it for you to feel, okay, I have to win this race?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was super nervous for the test event, so the
Yeah.
qualifying event. I was so nervous that I wouldn't even get the opportunity to race in the Olympics. And I definitely in that test event where I could qualify for Rio, had thoughts of back to the London Olympics, like I could get a flat and it's totally out of my control. Things can happen in triathlon that aren't in your control. And so for me, that was really nerve-wracking. But when it came to the Olympics, I actually had this really big just calmness about me.
Interesting.
I felt like I did everything I could the past 4 years to get me to the position where on race day I would be able to execute my best race, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And that's a very unique situation. I don't think it's normally like that. For me, that's normally not how I am at races. But in that race, I had just this feeling of I have done everything I could. I look back at my journal and saw everything I was putting into it day after day. And it's something Bobby McGee told me, who I work with. He said, Gwen, what's the likelihood that you're going to wake up that one day, that Olympic day, that one day out of 4 years, and you're going to feel amazing that day, and it's going to be the best day of your life. You're going to be 120%, and it was like you're probably not going to feel great on that day.
Mm.
And so for me, I went into the race and had this mentality of I just need to be average. And that may sound bad, but to me, what that meant was I need to be consistent. I need to just do what I've done every single day, which is put in the work, believe in myself, focus on the process, and focus on the investments of myself. And so for me, when I got to the Olympics, I just felt like I had done all those things and I was ready to go.
I remember interviewing Frank Shorter once, and he was talking about, if you look at the Olympics, the mistake people make is trying to be Superman or Superwoman. They try to do things they've never done before. He says, if you look at the marathon times of who wins, it's people who come closest to what they normally do, right? Which is sort of your mentality, right? It was like, I know
Exactly.
I've done all this. I've been on the back of a motorcycle with the guys from Red Bull taking me down. I never told my mom. You didn't tell your mom what you were doing on the back of a motorcycle,
She
did you?
wouldn't allow me to do it. So yes, I never told my mom.
So you knew that you had done everything, and all you had to do was be Gwen, and you know things would be good.
Exactly. Yeah. Just had to have a average day. Yep.
It's funny. I remember talking to Pat, and he was telling me, he said, if you look back at Gwen's career, when a race has a tough bike ride in it, people think it favors the other athletes who might be considered better cyclists. But the reality is that you're going to ride just as well, and then you're going to run better than they
Yeah, I
are.
think, yeah, the data pointed to me having that I had strength. And so off those harder bikes, I was able to run faster proportionately. And, I attribute that to a lot of just good training and me working with people, in the off season on my weaknesses around the bike and learning how to cycle cross and mountain bike and just putting in that time and effort.
So the Olympic race in Rio, you and Nicola Spirig, who was the defending champion from 2012, and she was in the buildup. She'd had like a broken hand and was dealing with all sorts of other stuff. During the bike, Nicola tried to drop you a number of times, but just watching on TV, you could just see how much confidence you were going. You knew, I'm guessing you knew that that's what she was going to try to do.
Yes, exactly. We all knew going into that race that everyone was going to try to drop me. And I'm somebody who's a type A personality. I like to have control. And so, if somebody's trying to drop me, I kind of felt like I was out of control. But the way we framed it, another gem from Bobby McGee was, you know, if I'm expecting them to drop me, then I'm in control because I'm expecting that. And that's something that really helped me. So we went into that race knowing people are going to try to get away from me because my strength is the run. And so they're going to try to get away from me on the bike. And so we were prepared for that. And the Olympic Games was interesting for me in the fact that on that bike, it felt like a little cat and mouse game. And I was just having so much fun, which is not typical. Like normally I'm game based, super just focused and just really intense. But on that Olympic day, it just felt like this cat and mouse game. And I just had so much fun because I felt like I was in control and I knew that nobody was going to drop me on that day.
And then you and Nicola during a run, you're basically pulling in the headwind. And there was a point where you guys had a little discussion. What were you guys talking about?
Yeah, I think it looked really silly on TV. We almost came to a dead stop, but Nicola, Nicola and I were kind of arguing about who should take the lead. And I said, well, I just led, so you should. And she said, well, I have the gold medal. And I responded with, you're also a mom. And I think that's more impressive. So it's kind of just a short little conversation, but it was, mostly about leading. And I really wanted to, I hadn't raced her since the previous Olympics. And so
Right.
I didn't really know what she had left in the tank. And I wanted her to go ahead so I could kind of read her body language, see if she was fatiguing, see what was happening. And she obviously was feeling tired, and she's admitted this, and she was trying to play some mind games with me to try to throw me off my game. So that was kind of what went on.
That's so fun. That looked like it just had, like you said, you were in that zone where play all the games you want. This is my day, and that my gold medal's waiting for me, and I'm about to make a move here, and there's nothing you can do about it. So when you come onto the blue carpet and you know you're going to win America's first ever gold medal in triathlon, what's going through your mind? Because usually you're pretty stoic at the finish line, but you were pretty emotional at this one.
I was, I didn't know I was going to win. I actually, Nicola took the lead for a little bit, and then I took the lead, and I actually thought she was right behind me. The great thing about the Olympics is how many fans there are. And
Yes.
so it was just lined with fans. It was people cheering. I had no idea if Nicola was right behind me. And I remember just focusing on form and trying to get that finish line as fast as possible and just thinking like, don't look back, don't look back. The prize is in front of you, look ahead. And I just remember repeating all these mantras to myself. That last, I think it was like maybe 3K.
Yeah.
And so, I ended up winning by 40 seconds, but I remember running down that finish line and thinking she is right there. And so when I actually crossed the finish line and did it, I broke down emotionally. I mean, I think, we've talked about a lot of things of being able to perform one day out of 4 years, like how tough that is. And just focusing all my energy for 4 years in this one thing and having so many people invest so much in me and believe so much, all the way back to Barb when she was calling me before I even did triathlon. Like these people all believed in me and invested in me before I was able to accomplish this goal. So it was all these emotions of relief and wanting to give that gratitude to other people and thankfulness. And, it was definitely very emotional for me.
What were some of the coolest things that happened to you after winning the gold?
Oh boy. Having Stanley. I'm sure that's not
Yeah.
what you want me to answer. You want me to say
No,
like,
that's
I went
great.
to New York and did a tour and did stuff like that. And Pat and I went to an Formula One racing event. We got like cool invites like that, but definitely Stanley. I have I'd been wanting to have a family for a long time, and Patrick and I knew like after the Olympics we were going to try to have a baby.
So not that long after the Olympics, you go and run New York City Marathon, right? And 241, it's like 41, 71 days after winning the gold. So you run 241. And at that point, was it already in your mind that, you know what, I'm going to be in the fearless one. Here I am, the Olympic gold medalist in the sport of triathlon. I can, do a little victory parade for the next 4 years, stay in this sport. I'm the dominant person in it. Was it already entering your mind that, you know what, I think I want to give the marathon a shot?
Patrick and I actually thought after Rio that I'd be done with sport completely and we
Yeah.
just
Oh,
have a family, have a bunch of kids. We didn't think I would do anything. And I ran that New York City Marathon because in triathlon, my run times were improving. And I felt like I hadn't reached my potential yet. And after that marathon, and then I had Stanley, and I just had a lot of time to think and thought about what motivates me. And I wasn't, I could have stayed in triathlon and that
yeah.
would have been maybe the easy choice and the better choice financially. But for me, that doesn't motivate me. I'm motivated by a challenge. I'm motivated by finding my potential. I set a goal in triathlon and I accomplished it. So to do that again just wasn't exciting for me. I wanted something where I could see growth and see improvement and something that motivated me to accomplish something that I thought was within reach, but super difficult is what kind of led me to start running.
And the learnings from going from being a triple sport person to focusing on the marathon. Talk a little bit about what you've learned about yourself through this, because it's people think, oh, it's only one sport, but it's so much harder, right? It beats up your body a lot.
Yeah, I think the toughest thing is dealing with injury for sure. Doing the one sport, in triathlon, I didn't run that much because I didn't have to. And in running, especially when you're going after marathons, you have to run a lot of miles. And I've always had good bone health, and I thought like, oh, I'm never going to get injured. And then I got an Achilles injury, which I didn't even know you could get like a tendon injury. I just felt so naive. But in triathlon, everyone said, Gwen, you just need to figure out how to stay healthy and injury free. And I think I took that for granted because I was never really injured in triathlon. And in running, I had injury and it was difficult. And it's a lot of time spent on prehab and rehab and strength, a lot more so than in triathlon. So, I'd say I'm putting in the same amount of time. It's just in different areas than I was in triathlon.
We were able to, because it's interesting. I think you were running faster after college when you started doing swim, bike, and run. Were you able to incorporate that into the running training, or did you focus specifically on running? Because I've always felt that sometimes runners are so just run, and if they added in a little swim and bike, they actually could be better, right? Be a little fitter and a little healthier.
Yeah. I haven't been adding in much running or biking and swimming recently. If I'm healthy and my body's feeling good, I like to just stick to the running.
Yep.
But I do at times, like if my body needs it, I do swim and bike, and I feel very lucky that I have that background, so I'm able to use that aerobic fitness.
If you were coaching, Isaac, if you were a high school coach, would you, in a high school track coach and cross country, now because you have your background and the fact that you did become a better runner by incorporating swim and bike, would you incorporate that for the kids?
I would definitely have kids not run a lot, especially at a
Yes.
high school age. I think right now, people are running too much too soon, but then again, that's kind of what you have to do because the times are changing. I just look at high school times and college times, and like I would not have been able to run at college
Yeah, yeah.
if if we were like if I was in this era instead of 8 or 10 years ago whenever I was in college. So I think the most important things and the things that I would want to tell people more than miles are the lessons I've learned, which is to focus on yourself and invest in yourself. I think we really easily seek approval from other people. And it's really good to realize that your self worth is not in sport. And that's something that I didn't understand as a high schooler, and something that caused me a lot of grief, and something that ultimately led me to perform worse. And I would also tell people to keep a journal. I think that's super important just so you can look back and gain confidence from it. And then, as well, another great one is just that to make sure it's fun, but as well view things as an investment, not a sacrifice. So, a lot of people are like, oh man, I can't go to the movies, or I can't go out with my friends. It's such a big sacrifice. Or I can't go home for Christmas if you're in college because I'm training. And it's just such a big sacrifice. And something that Jamie Turner taught me was that that's an investment in yourself and in your career, and it's going to pay dividends in the future. It's not a sacrifice, but it's a positive thing, an investment, and that will pay off.
So Jamie Turner was your tri coach, and then Jerry Schumacher, the run coach. How are they similar? How are they different in terms of their approach?
They both love sending workouts very late.
Like late at night. Like, you're going to be doing this tomorrow morning, and here's your workout. It's 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, like midnight or 1 a.m. So I think, and there's good reasons for it. The coaches are they're talking to service providers and like, how's Gwen feeling? How's, Sarah feeling? How's all these people feeling? And modifying training based on that. And as well, modifying training based on the weather and when is it going to be windy? When's it going to be best ideal conditions? And so there's reasons for these text messages to be late, but I think it can often be frustrating for athletes. But so they're kind of the same in that way. They're different in the way of, I'd say Jerry has plans in his head, but he doesn't always want to share them. As in like when I'm racing or what I'm racing. And I think Jamie shared those thoughts maybe really early on in the thought process. So that's kind of a difference, but they're both very focused on getting the most out of the athletes and being there on a daily basis and seeing like, how do the athletes look? How are they responding? And modifying the training based on the athletes.
So when I look at, again, Gwen going from CPA to triathlon, becoming the best in the world in a very short period of time, then moving in the marathon, going from 241 to 236. And I know you were sick going into that race, and that's when you had to have heel surgery after that. When you then, now it's, you could have gone to the Olympic marathon trials, but you didn't feel like your running mileage was up to snuff, and you weren't going there just to do the Olympic marathon trials. You want to make the team. So to bypass that and then focus on a shorter distance. I mean, anybody who talks about going from the marathon to 10,000, that's like saying, hey, I'm an Ironman athlete and I want to go race ITU. I mean, it's crazy. But again, that fits in with your MO. So when you made that decision to go 10,000 from the marathon, how difficult was that?
Yeah, I made this big goal, bold goal when I switched to marathon. I said I wanted to win a gold medal in the marathon. And so, I ran a marathon, and there was a lot of things about that marathon that weren't ideal. And after that, I had to get surgery. And after surgery, I just, I decided I'm not going to look at a clock. I'm not going to look at a calendar. I'm just going to let my body heal. And that was super difficult for me because I did know in the back of my head that the marathon trials were coming up, but at the same time, I didn't want to rush it and put myself in a bad place. I just knew I needed to be healthy to be able to have a chance to accomplish my goals. And, I got to the point where I was healthy, and I sat down with Jerry and we looked at the calendar and we just said, look, there's not enough time to put in the miles. And I didn't want to go to the trials. You take the words right out of my mouth, Bob. I didn't want to go there and just do the trials and hope I was going to qualify. I want to be able to know that I'm going to do well. And I think, one of the big things about me is I'm not afraid to say big goals, but I'm also not afraid to adjust them. I think I like to say goals and project them because it holds people around me accountable. It holds myself accountable. And I think it's important for people to have goals, and people shouldn't have to hide goals. I don't think, I think anyone who goes to the Olympic trials wants to qualify for the Olympics, and anyone who's at the Olympics wants a medal. And I think that's important that we don't hide that, at least for me personally. And so, I had said I wanted to win gold in the marathon and had to change that route. And I sat down with Jerry, and Jerry's like, well, Gwen, that I've always thought you'd be a better 10K runner than a marathoner anyway. So, it was a pretty easy decision to make for me. I really wanted to see what my potential in running was. And I just love running so much. Like, I can't tell you how happy I am right now running. And so for me, it was an easy decision. I know that I want to come back to the marathon one day, and I know that track running will help me in the marathon, but it's definitely been a big adjustment. I'm training with the world's best with the Bowerman Track Club. And last year with COVID, we had some inter squad races where I was racing a 1500 and 800 against a world champion 1500 meter runner. Like I just got annihilated, and that can be hard on the ego, but at the same time, it's so good for me to see the world standard and to push myself and to put myself in those situations where I'm uncomfortable. I think that's really where we grow.
Right now, the U.S. has some of the best women at 5,000 and 10,000. Well, not just in our history, but in the world, right? We got Molly Huddle, you got Emily Sisson, you got Marielle Hall, you got Gwen Jorgensen. When you look at it, it's like you're looking at future Hall of Famers up and down the lot. When do you try to avoid looking at that and just focusing on Gwen?
Yeah, I mean, I think I believe this in triathlon and running as well. It's good when you have people raising the bar, it raises everyone up. And I'm training with the best in the world with the Bowerman Track Club, and it's great because on a daily basis, I'm training with, you mentioned Marielle Hall and also Emily Infeld, who has a world championship medal in the 10K. And so it's fun to be able to see what they do and what it takes to get those medals on a world stage. And I would say, the last year with COVID, a lot of people were probably bummed about it, but for me, it was a great year growth wise. And I was able to see so many improvements. And going into this year, I see my confidence and I see what everyone's doing. And, I just focus on, like I did in triathlon, the process. And, I hound that over and over again. And I think it's really difficult to do. But once you're able to master focusing on the process and not the outcome, I think you can see a lot of growth, and that's where the true champions arise.
You're one of those people who understands that what you do for a living can be pretty selfish. You go out and you train all day long, right? But you're also one of those people who looks at the sport of triathlon, looks at the sport of running, and realizes we need more diversity in our sport, right? We need more people to understand that this our sport is an equal opportunity abuser. It doesn't care if you're tall or short or black or white, or if you're missing a leg, you can come out and go from point A to point B. You're connecting with TriMasters and with Bernard Lyles. Talk a little about what your plans are to be working with Bernard and one of the greatest programs ever. The TriMasters out of Chicago is spectacular.
Yeah, they really are. They're a great group that help the inner city youth and families of the Chicago area. And I've been given so much through the sport of triathlon. I want to be able to give back. And I think it's really important to get more inner city kids involved in triathlon. And I think it's an area that we're lacking in. And I'm also on USA Triathlon's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Access Council committee. And so, trying to just create and figure out solutions of how we can grow that sport and how we can make it totally inclusive. I would say it hasn't been in the past. And I think it's really important to make sure that we are inclusive, because I do think like the sport of triathlon, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for people who helped me out. And so I want to go back and help other people as well.
Yeah, we have so being a mom to Stanley and having him part of this journey, how fun has that been for you? Because actually having this everything delayed a year is probably good for Stanley understanding what the heck's going on.
He does understand now. It's so cute. It's he I don't know if this is understanding or not, but he'll like every once in a while come to a training practice and he thinks it's a race, and like we'll switch off leads. And so like when I'm in the front, he's like, "Mom, you're winning." And then I'll go to the back and he's like, "Mom, why are you losing?" And it's just so cute. And I'm like, dude, we're working together. It's a team thing. But yeah, it's definitely cute. I think, the first year was a lot harder than I was expecting. And it was also a lot harder than I was expecting. And just, I was breastfeeding. That took more energy than I thought. It was just Stanley not sleeping and how that took a big toll on me. And now, thankfully we have a little more of a rhythm with sleep, and we just have more of a routine. And it's a huge blessing, because I think, one of the things that's really helped me not let sport take over my life and my identity is having him. I come home from a workout and he doesn't care what I've done. And we don't talk about running, we talk about family stuff. And that's something that I think it's really good and important for everyone to know, that you're not just an athlete, you're more than an athlete. And he really gives me that.
So if someone had told you back when you finished up your running career at Wisconsin, 2009, that, oh, you know, hey, Gwen, you know what's going to happen in a few years? You're going to be the best triathlete in the world and you're going to win a gold medal. What would you have said?
Oh, I would have laughed and said they were crazy to me. I think Barb basically said that to me, and I was just like, no, that's insane. So, I do feel really thankful for, just everyone who believed in me. And I think that's a big reason why I want to continue to give back to the triathlon community, is because I wouldn't have gotten the first gold medal for the US if it wasn't for other people believing in me.
And look at it, Katie Zafaris came out of steeplechase. It was at Syracuse, and she became an Olympian. And now we've got Summer Rappaport, and what you've started, right? You were the first. Now all that obviously the program works. And
exactly. And I think it is as well, what we were talking about earlier in running, and, is it good to have a powerhouse of US women? And I think it is in any sport. I just think it raises the bar for everyone. And I think everyone becomes a better athlete, and that's how you become dominant on the world stage.
So first of all, thank you for being so amazing and chatting. And we've got some questions coming in. The first question was, who's more patient, Patrick or Stanley?
Hands down, Patrick. Stanley's definitely like me, and he's very stubborn, which I think can be a very good quality for an athlete. But he's also 3. So yeah, Stanley, he's an only child, and he's not very patient. But I think that's typical of a 3-year-old.
Exactly. Do you see another Olympics in your future after 2021, or will it be time for more kids? What's next?
I think the big thing I've learned through the past 2 Olympics that I've been to is I can't predict what I'm going to want to do until that cycle's over. Hopefully the Olympics will happen this year. Fingers crossed. And so I can't make any predictions. I mean, we definitely want more kids, whether that's me having them naturally or adopting, whatever happens, depending on, where my career takes us.
I love it. And so people are putting in some questions here. I want to see what our next one is here. What would you say to the moms who are trying to balance full-time work, motherhood, and training? Training often takes a backseat. So how do you balance that and keep a positive attitude?
I have an amazing husband who helps out and allows me to focus on training. And I think, Stanley is starting to understand as well what I'm doing. And, when I have to go to work and train, he understands that. And I think he also understands when I'm home, sometimes I need to rest, and he's able to, sit with me and read books. And I think, yes, I'm probably out and about doing more things with Stanley and maybe on my feet a little bit more, but he also brings me so much less stress by just not thinking I'm dwelling on what's happened in the past in my workouts and training. So I think that's really something that's allowed me to have that balance and allowed me to be a better athlete.
What's cool is when you come back from the workout, Stanley doesn't care, right?
Exactly.
Like your mom, and you're there to play. And he doesn't really care. Workout went good, didn't go good. He could care less. How did USAT and your Trifocus sponsors react to your changing from running triathlon to running?
Yeah. Even Patrick, when I told him at first, he was a bit like, why? Like, you're at the top of your career, and this is how we make money. Like, why do you want to do this? And so, I definitely, when I had Stanley, and then as well, when I switched focus to running, both of those times I had to be prepared fully for every single sponsor to drop me. And that was a chance we were willing to take. And just for me to be able to follow my heart and have to be able to chase my dream. So, thankfully, my sponsors stayed with me. They were very supportive. USA Triathlon obviously wanted me to stay in the sport. So, I think they were a little bummed, but it's something that I still want to be involved with USA Triathlon. It's why I'm on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. It's why, I'm giving back to TriMasters. I want to be involved in that community. I just know that if I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, I wouldn't be my best athlete, and that wouldn't do anyone justice.
So you were mentioning earlier that before we started that the workout you did the other day was when you look at your background as marathon and triathlon, and what was the workout?
Yeah, we did a workout earlier this week here in Arizona, and it was 4 times a 300, and that was it. And it took like an hour. It was like 10 minutes rest, and so it's pure speed. So definitely not my strength. But that's the one area I really want to work on this year. It's the one area that I feel like I can make the biggest improvement. So, it's challenging, but it's also exciting. Like I won a PR in my 300 when I did that. So it's fun to be able to do those things that are my weakness because I do see those improvements.
Another one. Did you alter your bike setup to handle the downhills in Rio? How did you maintain speed knowing it might it might topple you on the bike? Uh, our question comes from he did Ironman Nice and could not get up enough confidence in my tri bike to let it out to conquer the bike.
Yeah, that just takes a lot of confidence. Some things that I've learned are, focusing on feet on the pedal, trying to get your mass gravity like close to the ground. Um, Another good tip for me is, I always said, if the person in front of me can do this line, then I can do it too. And so just follow them and just trust. And, a lot of it's blind confidence. Um, but it's something that, I also, the biking is difficult and it's scary. And, I've fallen quite a few times on my bike and I would get so frustrated. And then Patrick would say, well, look at the Tour de France riders. They're the best in the world and they crash
Yes.
and they fall. And so that those sorts of things give me confidence. And, every time you fall, you hopefully learn something like that was your limit. You're testing your limit and you found it. And so for me, the Rio course, we had practiced that specific hill so many times that it was just engraved in me. It was just second nature. It was fine. But a lot of times you can't do that if you're not a pro athlete. You can't just go and ride the course a million times before. So, I think just knowing, doing other things outside of maybe triathlon riding, like the cyclocross and mountain bike, also gave me a lot of confidence. Just knowing how I feel on my bike and maybe my limits that I can reach.
Did you find a hill close to where you were living that was that sort of approximated what you did in Rio, or did you go down and make a special trip to Rio just to traverse that hill as many times as you could?
Yeah, we actually just found hills that were similar and practiced those. And there was things like in triathlon, we'd start off the year living in Falls Creek, which is at altitude in
Mhm.
Australia, and we'd have to come down the mountain every day to go to the pool. And everyone would ride in the car, and I would ride my bike down just to practice the corners. And I hated it; it was super mentally fatiguing for me. And I wasn't getting a workout out of it because it's all just downhill, like you're never pedaling, but it
Right.
was something that I needed to work on my skills. And so I would just do little investments like that every single day that helped me grow my confidence.
What's a typical training day like? Time you wake up, when you train, naps, go to bed, all that type of stuff.
Do you think I should answer for right now, like running or triathlon?
Yeah, I'm guessing right now.
Yeah. So I wake up about 6:37 a.m. Stanley gets up at 7:15. He has a little clock that goes off and he doesn't leave until that. So he normally comes in my room then and we read a book and then we go downstairs. I have breakfast, which is usually oatmeal. I do some stretches, some activations, and I'm normally out the door by 9 for an hour to an hour and a half run. Come back, eat something, do gym for about an hour, have lunch, take a nap, and then have a second run that's normally like 30 to 50 minutes and have dinner. And then I'm normally in bed by 8:15 at the latest. And then I have PT probably 4 times a week as well.
Wow. And weight training, has that changed from your triathlon time to now?
Dramatically. Yeah. In triathlon, I think there just wasn't time really to
Yeah.
focus on the strength training. And so now, I'm in the gym lifting weights, like I have a full setup in my house, I um yeah, to do all the stuff at home with COVID. But yeah, definitely more focused on gym and that just strength so that I'm hopefully more resilient and don't get those injuries.
So after trials and then after Tokyo, do you go back to marathon?
I mean, Bob, I just can't promise anything because I don't know what's going to happen.
That's true.
I
That's
mean,
true.
I want to do a marathon again sometime.
Yeah. What are the pros and cons of working with a squad?
Yeah, I think the pros are you get to see on a daily basis what the world standard is. It's motivating on a daily basis. So, like those days when you're tired and you're fatigued and you don't want to get out the door, your teammates are there and they're going to be asking, like, where were you today if you don't show up to run? Um, And it's just fun. I think that's, the most important is it makes it super fun, just to be able to talk to people. And those are my friends. That's my social life. I don't have any other friends. It's just my friends that I run with. And so being able to run with them and talk with them, those are my friends, and that's my social time. I think the con is everybody needs something different, and you
Yes.
need to really be able to differentiate, like, if that person needs to go faster today, that might not be what I need. And I think that can be hard. It can kind of be like, oh man, like if they're doing it, I have to do it today, even though it's an easy day. And so I think just managing how everyone needs different needs to become their best and to reach their potential.
Yeah, because you could go to a workout and you just get carried away because everybody's racing,
Yes,
and then you end up not getting from that workout what you needed for yourself. Another
exactly.
question.
Or, coming back from injury as well is a super important time to listen to your body and not follow your teammates. And I think that's a difficult time to do that. Yeah.
Besides the Olympic gold, is there one other race that sticks out as maybe your best race?
Yes, for sure. It's Stockholm. I don't know the year, maybe 2013 or 2014. I just remember that was it's cobblestone on the bike, big hill. And it was the first time I was like, I think I was like fourth or fifth out of the water and just had a great bike. And so for me, that was the race that I proved to myself that I was the full triathlete, that I was the swim, bike, run, full athlete.
Love it. Another one. How do you think we can make the sport more diverse, especially inner city youth and adults?
I wish I had the answer. I've been talking to different groups for over a year now, I guess, asking a lot of tough questions. And I think a lot of it, Bob, I've talked to you about this.
Yes.
And it's not that they don't have access to a pool or they don't have access to things. But it is trying to figure out like how to allow them to learn to swim, to get exposed to it,
Yep.
to just kind of, yeah, have the opportunity. I think the opportunities need to be in the inner city. So having groups that are in the inner city where people don't have to travel to get there, and then having races, kind of like you set up, Bob, where it's in a pool and it's only a
Yes.
25-meter, and then you just do everything in one small space, that's safe. And I don't have all the solutions, so I can't really fully answer that.
What words of encouragement do you have for the young girls and future Olympians who are looking up to your success?
Make it fun, have fun. I think that's the most important. Focus on the process, not the outcome. That's another big one, especially in swimming, people running too. We're so ingrained in looking at the time clock and looking at splits. And, in triathlon, I remember we'd do sets where we weren't given any pace to go off. We weren't given a time cycle. It was just like, do 2050s. And you'd be like, okay, what time? It's like, whatever you need to do to get it done. So, I think, focusing on the process and the techniques, focusing on, in running for me, it's like relaxing my shoulders, having good arm position, having a forward lean. In swimming, it's keeping that high elbow, having that high cadence. Those are the sorts of things to focus on. And I think, as well, I guess for encouragement, it's find people that you can train with that make it fun. The most important thing, especially at a young age, is just make it fun.
Can tell that you always have fun, Gwen. It's so much fun to chat with you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate what you've done for the sport. And seriously, every time I read anything about you, I'm just like, this woman is fearless. She's old. So this is a path that makes sense. I'm going this way. I'm going to read this. We have a quick promo on USA Triathlon Foundation. I'd like to say a brief word about USA Triathlon Foundation, a charitable arm of the sport. Their mission is to transform lives through sport by providing opportunities to swim, bike, and run. They focus on encouraging youth participation by getting kids to lead a healthy and active lifestyle. They also focus on supporting adaptive athletes, providing access to sports and pathway to Paralympics. And finally, they hope to ignite the dreams of our Olympic and Paralympic hopefuls. In 2020, the foundation raised over $200,000 to provide COVID-19 relief to those in the multi-sport community who were impacted by the pandemic. For the next week, the foundation is conducting an online auction to raise money for their continued support and give back to the multi-sport community. Please find a link to the auction at enduranceexchange.com for more information and to check out all the cool stuff that's offered there. for Gwen and I, appreciate everybody joining us in this conversation and at Endurance Exchange. I think we both are very optimistic for 2021. We'll have races. Gwen will be at the Olympics racing the 10,000. And for all of you who have been part of Endurance Exchange, thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting the world's greatest sport. And we will see you hopefully at the races here in 2021. Gwen, you are the absolute best. Give my best to Patrick and Stanley, and stay healthy and stay happy, and go out and make a snow fort. I bet you Stanley.
Yes, exactly. Time to go play in the snow. Yes. Thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully you guys learned something from the Endurance Exchange this year.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Thanks so much to everybody.